You're listening to RideAlong, EMT School. I'm Mike.
And I'm Max. We're two students navigating EMT School, bringing you along week by week.
And I'm Jonathan, a paramedic bringing real-world perspective.
Join us as we share the lessons, challenges, and stories from EMT School, and hear insights from those already living the EMS life. Welcome to the RideAlong. Well, hello, everyone.
We're back.
We're here again.
This looks different, doesn't it? I'm actually in the Bulletin studio.
You are in the studio this week, thankfully.
Yes.
Mainly because, well, I mean, if you listened to last week's episode, you probably heard a little special intro and outro because we tried doing an episode with all of us remote, and things did not work out.
Yes.
Murphy reared his ugly head.
Oh my God, did he ever?
Yep.
Yes.
So you had a power outage at your house.
Yeah.
At the same time, Jonathan was called out on was toned out. He had to go responding. Plus, he was on like midway through death's door, midway through a 79,000 hour shift.
Exactly.
It was 48.
It was a 48. But yeah, we had to cut that episode short. But that was part one of, what's the name of this episode? Your Catastrophe. Mm-hmm. Which is we didn't even mention the impetus of the song last time.
I don't think we did either.
It's do you either of you guys know who the artist is of that?
Only because you've said the name.
I'm gonna quiz Jonathan.
I got no clue, man. I know
clue.
that you guys, I have no clue. I know the era of rock music I know the era of rock music that you guys like. Is it a Metallica reference?
No, it's not. It's more modern than a Metallica reference. It's new metal. I think it falls under that category.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's Trivium.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they have a song.
I haven't heard that song by them.
It's a great song called Catastrophist, and like in there, it's like there's a line that's like, "You're a catastrophe, the one who comes to devastate, catastrophist," something like that. Anyway,
if you want to hear more singing by Mike, please write in.
You know what? Nobody has in like 60 weeks. How long have we been doing this? Like 40 weeks?
A year to 5 years.
In all the 47 episodes that we've been doing this, not a single person has wrote in to say, please,
but
more
here's
singing.
the thing. He's the one that sees the email. So we could have gotten in hundreds of requests.
You could have.
He could have just went delete.
I mean, do you, you know me, do you really think I'm going to be not relishing in the fact that people would be like, yes, Mike, we want you to sing more?
We would have heard about it.
You would have absolutely. I would have sent it right to you. Be like, look at this.
Look at what happened.
Yeah. No, nobody has written in and said,
when are we doing the
more
karaoke episode?
We do need to schedule a karaoke launch / celebration. Maybe we do it for like our 1 year anniversary in September.
That'd be cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It means you're going to have to come up to Pennsylvania, though, Jonathan.
I'll come to Pennsylvania. Yeah, I was just thinking I'll have to come to Pennsylvania, which is fine.
Yeah.
I have some time scheduled to come to Pennsylvania, so.
Yeah. And September would be good, although it'll be freaking busy because we have a lot of stuff going on.
Yes, always.
But, why don't we, okay, so here's what I'm thinking this week. Being that last week, we kind of had to cut the episode short. Mm-hmm. We kind of got into some stuff. We got into triage. Or it was primary triage because there's other types of triage. We mentioned that. And then we started getting into like, the actual main section of the podcast. It was like, okay, let's cut it there. And then that was essentially when your power died.
Right about when my power died. Yes.
And so we wound up cutting it there because Jonathan had to get called out soon after. So why don't we get right into it? Because I know everyone's probably waiting.
Yeah.
If they're catching this episode after last week, they're like, okay, finally, let's get it. Come on.
Like stop your chattering and get on with the episode.
Yeah, stop dicking around. We
don't need to hear about karaoke and trivium and
Yeah, we do that.
things.
We do that every week.
Exactly.
So, all right, let's continue our MCI and ICS discussion.
Yep.
If you want, we'll define both of those things. Actually, why don't we start there? Like what?
Yeah.
Like it seems like, okay, we talked about triage, but we didn't really get into a definition in that discussion of what is an MCI, right? Like that's the big question. Like, what are we addressing with all that triage and all of the organization and the ICS stuff?
MCI. It's another term in the EMS alphabet soup list.
It's never ending.
But MCI stands for mass casualty incident, right? So what does that actually mean, right? All right. A mass casualty incident is any incident that involves multiple patients and it places a demand beyond the capabilities of the EMS resources and the personnel of an EMS system. Mm-hmm. And we're talking specifically about EMS in this MCI definition, but that could extend to the fire department, that could extend to the law enforcement, just basically any public safety entity where you have multiple patients and it's taxing the resources that those systems and those organizations have available to them.
So based off of that definition, can you have an MCI with 2 people?
You can, right? If you have one ambulance and 2 providers on that ambulance, and then you have 2 patients and both of them are severely injured, well, it may require both of those providers to start to even provide adequate care to the one patient, let alone trying to provide adequate care to the second patient. So they may need additional resources, right? So that's kind of the key. It's a little bit fluid. It's a little bit nebulous depending on the incident in question and the system in question. But just understand that it's anything that's going to tax your resources beyond your capabilities in your system. Mm-hmm. And so that's the working definition of an MCI. And we do a whole lot of different things to try and address the potential for MCIs in our communities, in our EMS systems, in our organizations.
Right.
And kind of start with disaster plans.
A disaster plan.
A disaster plan, right? That sounds like a song title, right?
It sure
disaster
does.
Plan.
I guarantee you it is.
Or a band name.
Oh, it could be a good band name.
It would be.
That could be our alternate like band name.
Ooh.
Disaster plan.
Disaster plan.
But we have to wear masks like a Slipknot or Sleep Token.
Oh, we have to wear respirators and like fine. EMS and fire related gear, like
who gets the turnout gear?
Oh,
well, I do, of course.
Well, I guess Jonathan calls it. Let's see. Jonathan's in turnout gear.
Yeah.
One of us has to be in like a hazmat suit.
Are we sure we're not just recreating the Village People?
Hey,
I mean, like we don't have an Indian.
We don't have an Indian or a policeman
or a biker.
Yeah. Maybe we should have a biker then.
I mean, we know a biker.
A sailor. We can get a sailor.
Someone wearing a hazmat suit with a leather jacket on
and a dog collar.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those. I mean, you know what? I'm not even going to get into it. But like,
anyway,
yeah.
Moving forward, folks. Sorry about the sidebar. Okay, so disaster plans, right? These are pre-planned things that you try and implement before the actual incident happens, right? Mm-hmm. So this is something. These are going to be written down, right? The powers that be in your organization are going to look at the likelihood of scenarios based in your community, right? For instance, we have a paper mill here. Right. And there's a lot of dangerous chemicals. There's a lot of just like large industrial equipment. And there's lots of people in and out of that place all the time. Mm-hmm. And so the powers that be that are both stakeholders inside the paper mill And in the community as responders, we have to look at what are some likely scenarios that would occur, and how would we address those scenarios if something did occur, right? If we had a hazmat incident, how would we address that? Well, they have an on-site hazmat team that first and foremost would go in there, and then we would potentially back them up as the municipal organization or municipal agency to come in. But in general, we sit down, we have what's called a tabletop exercise, and we talk about all the different things, and then we talk about all the things we're going to do, and we talk about all the things that we would do if scenario A through Z happened. And then we talk about how we're going to stage apparatus, how we're going to stage personnel, how we're going to stage equipment. And you start to get a feel for, okay, this is what our plan is. And then we have multiple plans within this one plan to fall back on if we run into issues.
Yeah. So for instance, I don't know, I need to go to my hometown service and see if they have any disaster plans, but like,
sure.
Would I'm just throwing out because the week before last we talked about hazmat, right? Yeah. Like is a train derailment. Like I have a train that runs through the middle of town.
Sure.
Like would that be something that probably has a disaster plan prescribed?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
That definitely could, especially, we also have a significant rail presence in our community, and our ER doors are, 45 yards from a rail line that runs right past them. So if we had a derailment at the hospital, that's an actual disaster plan that we've had to sit down and talk about. What are we going to do? How are we going to provide alternate medical care if something were to happen at the hospital? So like if something happened at say, like just talking through like a potential disaster plan. So like say there was a fire at an elementary school. Nobody wants to deal with that, obviously. Like that sounds terrible. But like say there were casualties or people that were hurt during that fire. Let me ask you, like, would it be, okay, so if something like that happens, fire is going to stage at the northwest corner of this street, and that's our kind of predetermined command post, and then all other things would is it that granular as to like where some of those things are going to be fluid because it is going to depend on the specifics of the incident, right? Because that corner may not be safe,
right? Yeah,
or that corner, right? There may be some factor within the actual incident that says that's not the place to go. Sure. Ultimately, your first arriving units on scene, they're going to give a scene size up. They're going to take command, and then based on that, and then looking at the disaster plan, they're going to make some decisions. But that's the thing about disaster plans. Like they are pre-planned. They are but they also give some flexibility to respond. Okay. One of the things about them, they should be written down. People in the organizations that would be responding should have access to them. And oftentimes, if only you get to do a tabletop, that's a positive thing. But there should also be a component of maybe even doing a mock disaster. Okay. For makes sense that particular location, if it's feasible. Sometimes it's not, but so like rehearsals. Yeah. Okay. It's essentially you're doing a rehearsal for what you would do in an actual incident, and sometimes you have observers that look at the response and then they take notes and then they present as to what they observed and give feedback based on that. At any rate, these are going to be very specific to communities. These are going to be very specific to organizations. But everybody inside those organizations and those communities, you should be aware of what your disaster plans are for your organization and your communities. The benefit of us, and we're going to talk more about it in the episode, the benefit of us moving to the incident command system or ICS is that nationally our responses should be fairly similar command structure wise.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so that is a benefit. But like, let's talk about, we've already talked about a couple of different, MCIs. Let's talk some more about what else might be an MCI. So you could have a potential for a gas leak at a school. Today, actually, as a matter of fact, we responded to a dialysis center where people are actively being dialysized and or having dialysis done. And
I like dialysized.
I like that. That's good.
I don't know if that's an actual word, but it is now.
That's another great band.
It is now. It should be.
Dialysized.
Dialysized. You've been dialysized.
We had an incident where today there was smoke in the structure. And so those people had to evacuate. Evacuate that structure, right? That's part of a disaster plan for them. And then we responded over there. And then the fire department came, they checked everything out. And what it ended up being, at least to the best we could figure out, is there were some power issues that the fire department was already responding to. And some of the machines inside of the dialysis center require a certain level of power. And essentially what happened is it overtaxed the machines and burned up some of the motors and caused the smoke to fill the building. But that could have been a very bad thing, right? Like, you've got, 10, 15 people hooked up to dialysis machines and they need to have their blood put back into them and they need to get them out of there. So it's kind of an interesting situation. But yeah, so that's an example of a potential, MCI, right? Disaster. But we talk about active shooters, active threats in schools, a bus crash. That's probably a big one.
Something as simple as like a school bus, getting to some sort of accident. I mean, how many people does a school bus hold? And then you have to make sure that all of them are okay and all that. Yeah.
And that's been one of the MCIs that now generally, it depends on the severity of that crash, but this one was very, very minor. It involved another motor vehicle. The bus stayed upright. There was more damage to the other vehicle than there was to the school bus, but you had to provide care to all those kids and check them out and make sure they were good to go. Right.
We had one
by all means.
We had one local to us where all it was the AC went out in an old folks home. And they had to basically evacuate all the people out of the building, get them to a community center because that day it was 95 degrees or whatever it was. And it was just a simple thing that the AC went out.
Okay. So let me ask an interesting question here, because I think what we're also kind of dancing around is, do you need hurt people for it to be an MCI?
No.
Like, do you need actual injuries or patients?
No, you just need people at risk.
It kind of seems like that's, well, I think to Jonathan's point earlier, the definition of the MCI being something that overloads the resources available in the EMS system, just because somebody isn't, we respond to things where people aren't necessarily confirmed to be hurt.
Right.
So if we need to show up and start assessing 100 kids for injuries, that seems like it falls into the MCI category to me, because
100%.
It's now taxing more than the available resources, right?
Yep.
Right. And it is a judgment call. Typically when we think mass casualty incidents, we think about lots of hurt people.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily, how severely are they hurt, right? And we're going to talk more about like our triage categories.
Yeah.
In this episode, but it's like, all right, well, what are the majority of people going to be in their triage category, right? Are they walking wounded? It's very possible.
Sure.
Let's shift gears just a touch though. These are the things that in our communities we hope and we pray never happen. Because by and large they are disasters. They may be localized, but they are disasters. They may be just disasters in this particular incident, confined to this particular location. But there's a psychological component to mass casualty incidents.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, imagine how
Go back to the bus of 40 kids.
Yeah.
Right. Just the sheer volume. And again, it could just be that two passenger or two victims in a motor vehicle crash. But if it's taxing your resources, there's so much stress associated with that. On a good day, a regular EMS call can be stressful, but
Sure.
you start adding more and more casualties into the mix. There's a whole list of psychological stressors that could occur.
Yeah.
Sometimes in this, the people that are screaming the loudest and that are, flailing about the most are probably the least injured. That's possible.
Yeah.
If they're screaming, they can breathe.
True.
Yeah, true. They have an airway open.
Yep.
But to that point, the sound.
Yeah.
Like humans have an ability to like capture like senses, right?
Sure.
Like, and they burn into our brains, like the smell of smoke,
Yep.
the sound of multiple children screaming, the feel of heat. Like these are things that like we cannot let go because they get burned, like literally burned into our brains.
Sure.
And they get linked to that moment. But that moment, how we process that moment, how we support people in that moment, that can be all the difference, right?
Sure.
Like I think that's kind of what we're getting to in the MCI stuff is because like, that's one of the things that we have to learn. Like we have the potential to deal with in this field.
I mean, the whole idea of being able to remain calm as all that's going on around you. I don't think it's anything you're going to learn until you're actually in. You can practice it as much as you want, but you're not really going to get to a point where you can, get better at being that person until you're in it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, hopefully there's things that we can do to learn that type of stuff. I think practicing and like rehearsing, like the disaster plan stuff, I think going through types of training that do that. But it's fascinating because like we train for all this stuff, but is there really enough training? Is there really enough preparation for the mental, like the psychological aspect of this?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be on an individual basis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's, that we talk about building resiliency as providers. And then, that's going to be an important thing for us to try and do. But ultimately, we don't know how well we've done until we put ourselves in that incident.
Yeah.
They never go great, but we can do things to save lives, and we can do things to reduce the amount of inefficiency. And that's really what we're aiming for with dealing with an MCI. It's important that when you are dealing with these folks, you have a calm and reassuring voice. Right? It's a scary thing. You acknowledge that. Be honest with the folks that are, casualties or the walking wounded, or maybe even bystanders that are there. As much as you can be anyway. Yeah. There's going to be they're going to want solidified answers, and there are going to be times where you just don't have an answer, right? It's okay to say you don't know. But the big thing is we want to avoid us as providers becoming psychological casualties during this, right? That's really we have to develop that resilience. One of the things that's helped me through my career is visualization, right? Just running my mind and truly just trying to be there in my mind. All right, if this is the scenario that I have, it's a car crash. I've got, five casualties. I've got, all levels of injury. I'm trying to imagine. I'm trying to be there in my mind with the sights, the smells, the sounds, all of it. And that mental visualization and practice of what you're going to go through can be beneficial. if for whatever reason you notice somebody that is a provider that's starting to succumb to, that the psychological stress, it may be time to pull them off of whatever task they're doing,
Right.
and shift them into a different role, or maybe even just give them a break.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Everybody has a threshold for how much they can handle. And that threshold's going to be different for everybody, but nobody can function past that threshold.
Right.
Again, it's going to be an individual thing, and it's going to be tough, but it may not be a good idea to send them back into the mix of things if they're not good to go.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's super important to remember the impact that it has in these situations. I actually learned a really interesting thing about dealing with MCIs when I went to EMS World Expo, and I was trying to look up the actual specific name of the event, but I can't find it, or the seminar that I sat in on. But a really interesting question was posed, like. When it and I know this is getting a little deep into triage and all this other stuff, but if who do you think it should be the first person off a scene in terms of casualties? So like usually we're talking about like the triage categories, mm-hmm. red, yellow, green, and black, right? Typically, which one do we prioritize first?
Reds.
Red, right. Okay, so within the reds, or even if it's a yellow, say you have an EMS provider or a fireman or a police officer that gets hit in any, or that gets injured in any category, red, yellow, green. Where do you put them in the prioritization?
Well, traditionally what I've heard in my training is you get them out of there, because that is a demoralizing thing for the rest of the responders. So you got to get them out of there.
You have to take the psychological impact to all of the other providers into account.
Sure.
Because that person, even if it's a police officer that has a walking wounded injury or something like that, it's minor, that will distract everybody else there.
Right.
Because, and that all ties into the psychological impact, because these events become so overwhelming and we have such a duty to each other, right? Mm-hmm. That person, regardless of, like, you can argue the morality of it, of being placed ahead of other injured people, but the fact is, taking that person out of the situation will get the rest of the providers to focus,
right? Which is
what you need to do.
It won't distract the resources that you have. Yeah.
So when you start looking at these things practically, in terms of like the psychological aspect as well as the realities and the logistics and all these things on MCIs, it's fascinating.
And I think that's the kind of thing that, you're not going to find out until you run those scenarios and you run those rehearsals, because mm-hmm. that's not something that's going to occur to the general, providers that are inside of it.
Yeah. Well, I think those types of lessons are the hard-earned ones.
Yep.
That even with the rehearsals and the practice and the staging and all these things we can try and do without it, sometimes you have to earn lessons through pain and blood and failure. That's one of those ones I was like, oh, that's a hard-earned lesson.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't just think of that one day and be like, you know what, we should just prioritize us, the providers, over all the other patients, even if they're green. They had to sit through an incident where there was probably somebody who was not a priority casualty.
Yep.
And a bunch of providers and or responders focusing on that.
Yep.
So it's interesting.
And it's not even a thing about like necessarily prioritizing, providers or public safety members. It's a thing of how in the line of trying to do the most good for the most people, if those folks are still on the scene and not being cared for or what have you, it's a distraction.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a distraction. It takes away from the care that needs to be provided to everybody else.
And it's contradictory to the idea of having that calm level, organized appearance that the patients need to see so they can remain calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So we're talking about the actual MCIs themselves.
We are.
And we got a sense of like, okay, these are the problems that can exist. So I guess the question is, how do we address them? Because we talked about triage in the last one.
We did.
But what is this? Like, what is the solution? How do we stay calm? How do we know what to do? How do we know where to go? How do we know what their goals are?
Well, that's where the ICS comes in, the incident command system.
Oh,
and that hierarchy of people that are gonna run things and organize things so it keeps flowing. The right people get to the right places, and all this.
If that wasn't the cheesiest setup it
was a little cheesy, but I appreciate it anyway. And this all comes under the National Incident Management Systems, NIMS.
The NIMS. We had to take NIMS training, didn't we?
We did, and I have to say I zombified my way right through that because that was
it is so not the most interesting. Like all the federal stuff is just
oh my god,
it's rough.
And the acronyms. Oh my god, the acronyms.
Yeah.
But it is important to understand how the structure is created, why it's created, and understanding where everything falls, because the reality is that when you get on that scene and you're that first person on scene, you should know where you fit into the picture. You should know, where you need to go, who you need to talk to, how to get more resources.
Even if you're not the first person, I would say like the first person on scene is actually kind of easy. We'll talk about that, but it's when you're the fifth or the 10th.
Where do I go?
Yeah.
What do I do?
Who do I talk to? Like who's in charge of this thing?
And back to, Jonathan's point of like these things being rehearsed, they are rehearsed over and over and over and over again. And in that ICS, it could be something as simple as just a small, EMS system that is utilizing it. But that structure is mandated by FEMA because they have to be able to plug that into a system, whether it's a small scale or something that's taking over an entire city.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense when you start realizing that like it scales.
It has to be able to scale. It has to. And it has to be able to go to large scale incidents, whether we're talking about a school, like we mentioned, or an evacuation or a hazmat situation.
Or a stadium. Like that's all of a sudden you're pulling in resources from multiple counties, multiple cities, like possible states, depending on where it is. Like,
and if you don't have that structure already put in place, trying to organize that is just going to be absolute chaos.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I'm sure it breaks down to chaos in some situations, but at least having that structure available and having the practice in your own system of where you belong and how you fit into it, I think is hugely important. And as you're becoming an EMT, I think it behooves you to find out where you fit in that system and who you should talk to and how it's run. Yeah. Hopefully whatever service you're in is training you in that, but if not, you should seek that training out.
Well, it's also, we do that MCI or ICS 700, whatever I forget what the designator is. Like that is something that usually every first responder has to go through, or at least we had to get our EMT cert. Like there's a reason it goes through it. Even if it's just a primer, an introduction to it, it's important because we may find ourselves as a cog in that system.
What's the term? I forget the term.
No, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, so there's main functional areas inside of this. You have command, which is overall leadership, whether it's a section of it or overall leadership over the entire situation.
Right. The ones that are in charge of the whole thing.
Telling you what to do, which is what you want.
Well, there might be multiple people telling you what to do, but there's only one that's at the top.
Yes.
And that's the command, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You have operations, which is directing resources. So whether it's bringing in the hazmat teams or bringing in extra ambulances, or if you have to interject flight into the situation, setting up landing areas, and then just getting materials to you if you need it.
Well, let's break that down a bit because
that's also logistics too.
Yeah, like because you have to kind of like there's a reason why these things have delineations. I think the easiest way to define operations is what, like the people doing things to achieve the objective, like the ones that are actually doing work. Like, and I'm not saying everyone isn't doing work, but like if there's a fire, the ones that are putting out the fire, the ones that are addressing the wounded people, the ones that are shutting off the water, the ones or shutting off the gas line. So if they're actively doing the thing, they're like operations moves the resources to achieve the objective.
Right. And then you have planning, which is tracking the incident information to develop an IAP or an incident action plan.
Yeah, these are the thinkers.
Yes.
The strategic people.
And then again, logistics. They're providing personnel, equipment, supplies, whatever it is that you need to take care of whatever is going on. Again, whether it's a hazmat or a motor vehicle accident, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, when we talk about logistics usually means stuff.
Yeah.
It usually means like supplies.
Yes.
And like, you know, what resources do we need to bring in that aren't necessarily people?
Yep.
That are like, you know, how do we get that stuff to where it's needed?
Whether it's cases of water.
Yeah, it could be that.
It's something as simple as that. And then the really exciting stuff.
Oh,
the stuff that really like just gets everyone up and ready to go. And that's finance.
Yeah.
Everyone's thinking about finance as they're running the sirens and lights and they're flying to the incident, but they're important because they have to track all these costs.
Well, yeah.
They have to know what do they need to allow for the budget. Did they allow enough? Did they not allow enough? And this is all, if it's not important for that incident specifically, it's going to be important to the next time and how it's responded to.
Well, here's another thing that is many people are like, well, why is there a finance area? Well, at the end of the day, like those individual agencies, they don't run off of goodwill. No, they run off of money.
Things cost money.
And they expend resources and personnel and payroll and things overtime that like, okay, they're going to be using that on whatever this incident was. So you need somebody on these really large scale ones. Cause like, I highly doubt finance is an area that gets activated for every MCI, but for the really big ones, like imagine Katrina, like the Hurricane Katrina that rolled through in 2006. I guarantee you in that large FEMA response, there was probably all of these branches or all of these areas were in effect. And there was probably a giant team of people that had to keep track of all the different agencies that were working and all the hours and all of the expenditures and all of the things that they had to do so that at the end of the day, they weren't devastated by helping with an MCI. Yeah. Like they could get reimbursed for all the fuel and the tents and the food and the water and all the things that they had to use to respond.
And whether they're getting it back from FEMA through the federal funding, whether it's county, state.
Yeah, somebody's got to track all that stuff.
Because the reality is that these services can't take on those costs.
No, I mean, but that's what we prepare for, but they need to get reimbursed, right?
Well, and the other aspect is there may be folks that you may need to hire a cleanup company. That specifically works, you know, in the realm of hazardous materials that specifically deals with that kind of material. Yeah. And they may have to come in. So there's people that need to deal with those contracts and making sure the paperwork's there, the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And it is an important aspect. And then again, like you said, bumping it up. Does this meet the qualification of a state level disaster? Yeah. Right? Can we get state level funding? Can we get federal level funding because of this disaster?
Yeah. And you hear a lot, like when you on the news when you talk about whether it's hurricanes or wildfires, whatever happens to be. You know, the governor of that state has requested federal funding for a federal disaster, or has stated that this is a federal disaster. But the two that are the most common to see and work in and out of or have a touch on is command and operations.
Yeah, I think those are pretty much you have to have somebody in charge and you have to have people doing things.
Exactly.
And those two things are going to happen no matter what.
Yeah. So let's talk about command. So again, we're talking about an incident commander, a singular person that is in charge of the situation. He's going to assume the responsibility. He is the one that's going to be directing people and telling them what they need to be doing. It must be established at all incidents. It's a requirement.
So you mean you can't just do the no, like I'm not it?
I think you can. I think again, we talked about this, I think, last week.
Yeah, I didn't get any further information.
You have to establish not it.
Oh, okay.
But you have to raise your hand and say not it.
Oh, all right. So
it's the inverse of shotgun.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And we discussed this, last week. But there has to be someone that's going to be calling the shots.
Yeah.
That's the reality of the situation. And that is the most common type that you're going to find. It's generally assumed by the most senior member of the first emergency service on scene, whether that's fire, EMS, police, whatever it winds up being. Sometimes this winds up being EMS, but generally it is not. It is usually, especially if it's like a motor vehicle thing, it's usually fire. But it can be EMS as well.
Sure. There's no rule saying it can't be, but it just depends on who the most senior, most appropriate person is.
Exactly. It can be transferred to someone who ranks higher. So if someone comes on scene and they are higher rank and they're more qualified to do the job, it can be transferred to that individual. But it has to be requested.
Well, it has to be surrendered or like it has to be given basically or relinquished. So like, for instance, I think it helps to kind of think through this stuff because I actually did a talk through with one of my lieutenants one day at at the firehouse. And like we talked about, okay, well, what if there was an MCI in a car accident? Okay, we get dispatched. We're the first unit on scene. What would we likely, like if we see, something that is presenting itself that is overloading the capabilities that we have in play, we have to declare it an MCI. And there's different levels and distinctions of that, like in whatever system you're in. But ultimately, we need more resources and we need to start directing those resources and calling them in. So guess what? We're the EMS team. The fire team's not there. We're now the incident commanders. And what we'll talk about in a bit is like, okay, one of those guys, like if you have two people on an EMS crew, one of those is probably going to have to become the incident commander. And the other one is going to have to become whoever is in charge of like clinical decisions, medical care. Right. And we'll talk about that. But one of those people becomes the incident commander. Okay. And he has to start figuring out what does everybody need? What other things do we need to come in there? And then, when the next unit that comes by is probably going to be a fire truck, right? That might have like every fire truck, every fire truck has a officer on it, right? Usually somebody that has more specialized training in being a MCI commander, right? It's like, hey man, are you in charge? Like, okay, here you go. I'm relinquishing command to, engine 63 or whatever the thing is. And then they become the incident commander and you could start working EMS stuff. But it could be anybody. Yeah. Like, and it has to be, you have to be familiar with it because at any point you may need to start calling in more resources.
And the person that becomes an incident commander may not be the more experienced person that's on the ambulance.
No, that's actually one of the nuances that I found really interesting about
because
ICS.
If you have a medic and you have an EMT, it is more appropriate for that medic to be the one that is taking care of casualty care and starting that medical process. Triage.
He becomes the triage officer.
So you may be a brand new fresh EMT and roll up on a scene and guess what?
You're the incident commander. Yeah. At least until somebody else better gets there.
So you can stand there, shake, pee your pants, and wait until the next person that's of higher rank can take it from you. And ICS tends to keep the number of managed people between 3 and 7, which makes sense. Because if it gets to be more than that, then it's going to get upgraded.
Well, no, it's there's studies in human behavior. Really, in any structure ever, the most efficient and the maximum amount of people that any one person can really keep in touch with and or supervise is is really somewhere between 3 and 7 people.
Yeah.
Like if you're working in any type of organization, you have more than like 4 direct reports, your organization's probably taking advantage of you. Like you should really only have a certain number of people that you manage.
Right.
So Mike, the name for that or the term for that is span of control.
Okay. Yep.
So your span of control. So 3 to 7 is kind of like that zone. 7 is just a little too much. Ideally,
it's rough.
5 is the max that we want to go to. 7 is the max, but like 5 is more ideal than 7.
Yeah, I've been in charge of 8 people in. Actually, no, I've been up. There were times where I had to manage. Oh God, there were 12 graphic designers that on a big project, and I was the direct. What's it called when you're there were direct reports to me for a couple of projects, and I'm like, this is too much. And it was like pulling teeth to try and convince people to be like, hey, can we section this out some so that I can put other people in charge? Because really, if you have 12 or 13 people in trying to do any one thing, having one person in charge of that is not efficient.
No, it's not.
Breaking that into smaller, manageable groups that can complete tasks independently.
Yep.
And then having one person within that smaller group that then reports into the larger or the chain of command, that is optimal.
Yeah, it's like
far more effective.
When in my previous employer managing delivery crews and installers and everything else, I found it to be way easier to deal with when you have one person in charge of that crew, and then that person that is in charge is the person that reports to you.
Yeah.
Not having 8 people in your office, it's just like herding cats.
Yes.
And then you have another type. There's 2 types of commands. So we talked about single incident command where everyone falls under one commander.
That's the simple one.
That's a simple one.
I think it's one we're probably most familiar with.
But there is also something called unified command. And this is where agencies are going to work independently, but they're going to work with each other. And I would imagine this is maybe something that you're going to see more when you have a bigger incident.
Yeah, like where there's multiple agencies probably across different jurisdictions.
Yeah, especially when you get some kind of situation where you're on like a county line. So you have both counties responding. You could have 2 townships responding. You could have 2 different police agencies responding. That's a situation where you might see something like a unified command.
Yeah.
Where each side's going to kind of run their own thing. And then you may have 2 or 3 people that are going to basically communicating with each other. And then they're going to be delegating to the people that are under them.
Yeah, I think the way the book described a unified command was that like any single agency is in total command of the incident, and that each different department or agency was kind of like has their own command structure, and they kind of share decision making, which I'm not gonna lie, they call it unified command, and it kind of sounds not unified, like in terms of like if you were going to use the true sense of the word unification.
I have heard conversations being in the ambulance house, especially being right on the border of Bucks County. There are 2 counties in Pennsylvania, and being right on that border. And just the litany of complaining about the response at time and the responsiveness of the neighboring county.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it goes both ways.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. The rivalry, animosity, the kind of, I would actually probably more classify it as sibling rivalry, because we're all on the same team, but we all like to put each other like, oh, we're better than those guys,
Now, if it runs the way it's supposed to, which is the way you would like it to, each agency is going to take the lead when it's appropriate for that situation. And also that unified command should be under one roof.
Oh yeah. Like not just like an actual physical roof.
Yes. Like where you can see each other and respond to each other, not across messaging or radios. And then you have further breakdowns of these commands with section chiefs. So you have the incident commander, and he manages the section chiefs. Mm-hmm. And you have a couple of different sections we already talked about. You have operations, and that's going to encompass EMS, fire, law enforcement, and then specifics like hazmat, evacuation, air operations.
Yeah, like those guys or gals. So there's the operations section chief, right? Like, and he reports to the incident commander.
Correct.
So then you need people that report into the operations chief.
And that's going to be the directors of those different branches.
Yeah. So those are specifically called branch directors. Right. So EMS branch director, fire branch director, police branch director. Those people are the ones that are kind of the second level down, falling under operations.
So like we talked about it a little bit before, if you're that fifth ambulance coming in line that's approaching the situation, like you would probably be responding to your EMS branch director. Yeah. He's the person that's going to be could be directly talking to you and telling you where you need to go, what you need to be doing.
That may be true. I mean, depending on how big. So this is the interesting about ICS is it's scalable, right? Mm-hmm. So while optimally you might be reporting to, like on a smaller thing, I'm going to report to the EMS branch director.
Yeah.
If that thing grew, if you're approaching a really large scene, you might be responding or listening to the transportation chief that falls under the EMS branch director, which then falls under the operations chief, which then falls under the incident command. Like
it's a Christmas tree that can just.
But here's the nice thing about it. Depending on the size of the incident, and this is one of the things they emphasized in the training, the federal training that we went through, is the whole point of it is so that you have one person that you should be listening to. One person that is responsible for your actions.
Yep.
And one person so you're not getting a bunch of different directions from a bunch of different people. So if you're, it's, hey, who do I need to report to? And what do I need to do? So we can get things done.
And especially if like time is of the essence, the idea of you squandering time trying to figure out who you're supposed to be talking to is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
And then you have other section chiefs, planning, logistics, and finance, like we already talked about.
Yeah, the people that are in charge of those different areas.
But that's basically the breakdown. And again, like we said, the idea that it can be scaled and can be plugged into any other system and still run efficiently.
Yeah. All right. So we have a sense overall of what ICS creates, the different areas and functions that it has. But why don't we talk about the head honcho?
Yeah, the guy in charge.
The guy in charge. Well, and here's the interesting thing about it too. It may not just be one person. Like we talked about, there might be a unified command. It may be a group of people that are technically in charge together. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to use the kind of single command system as the examples in here.
Yeah.
And even if there is a single commander, he may still have a staff.
Sure.
And that's what we're going to talk about here. That commander may have people that are helping him command.
Well, I sincerely hope
that aren't necessarily part of the other areas like operations, right?
Right.
But the command, we'll talk about command as kind of an overall structure. The first thing that they really need to do is kind of set the command, right? Like it's one of the first things that you have to do on scene if you do have to kind of declare a MCI is okay. I am establishing command. And usually you're not only just establishing command, you're establishing technically the command post.
So do you just stand there and put your hands on your hip and wait for the sun to glint off your aviator glasses?
Yeah. Well, no, you have to have a flag. Oh. This is where remember that flag we talked about?
Yeah,
you have to claim a lawn, raise a flag, and then you have to defend it.
You tell fire, just let's mow this house down. This is where I want my command center to be.
Yeah, like just start moving cars off the streets. Like this is my spot now. No, you have to set the command post.
Yeah.
And usually in our system, and it may be, I assume it's similar in other places, when you're setting a command post, you're establishing it as a location. So I'm establishing EMS branch, if we're talking about overall command, Keystone Street.
Mm-hmm.
So Keystone Street becomes the command post.
And it could even be a vehicle.
It could be, but what you need to what they're typically doing is they're calling the location,
right?
And that location becomes a point in space that people can go to and know where the commander is, right? So it's the command post. That's the location, and it usually has a name associated with it of that location. So that's the first thing the commander is kind of doing is saying, all right, this is the command post. I'm in charge. This is where we're going to be meeting. If you need to find me, I will be here. And then from that point, he kind of has two main tasks. First one is the scene size up. So whoever is in charge of this whole thing really needs to get a broad view of everything that's going on. We're not just talking about like the number of casualties of people that are injured, but the entire scene going, okay, so we have 2 people injured. We have 3 cars leaking gasoline. We have power lines that are down. That could be a hazard. He has to assess the entirety of the whole thing and go, all right, what do we need? So that's when the calls start going out. And he's starting to say, we need EMS. We need more EMS than what we have here. We need hazmat. We need a fire crew here to deal with the hazmat. We need PSE&G. Oh, sorry. That's like my New Jersey roots coming through right there. But like we need the power company out here to shut off the power lines. Right. We need the gas company out here to turn off the gas. Like he's the one that's starting to call out to all these different people. So he's sizing up the scene. That's number 1. And number 2 is organizing and delegating. Absolutely essential especially in an incident such as this. The person in charge cannot be the one that's getting into the weeds. No, like the guy who's in charge of the entire scene can't be the one that is bandaging an ankle, like splinting an ankle. It does, like, that is too in depth into what, like, they need their head higher up above what's going on. They need to see the 50,000 foot view, not the 5 foot view. Right. Yep. So those are the 2 main things. So with that scene size up, he's asking the question, what needs must be met, and physically walking the scene. Like that is very important to see seeing problems from all angles, looking for patients, talking to the other providers or responders that are there to get information from them. Like, hey, what are you finding? What do you have? Right. Looking around, how many cars are there? How badly damaged is that car? Well, maybe taking a few steps further towards it, seeing it from the other angle. Oh, well, that's a much more serious crash than what I could see from the original viewpoint. So, sometimes they'll refer to as doing the 360, going all the way around the incident to get an idea what's going on. Right. So you got to walk through, you got to find the hazards, how bad the patients are, how many patients are, the same things we do when we get that windshield assessment, when we roll up on any scene, except you're doing it across the entirety of the incident. And then communicating. The role of the incident commander is a role of communications. Sure. So who are you talking to? Like what do you need and where do you need them? Are staying calm, cool, collected, and enunciating things over the radio so that people can hear what you need, instead of it just being, like, oh my God, we need everything right now. Like, it's not, no one's going to respond well to that. They'll respond. Yeah, they might. But you have to, like, we have to know how or strive to be calm when we're communicating all that stuff. So, on the communication side, it's, we're establishing the command. We're making sure that we enhance clarity by not getting confused with other things that are on the same radio network. This is where, getting really intimate and understanding your radio system is important too, because as you set a command or somebody else sets a command, they may need to remove the command, like the communications for that particular scene from the main communications network. So if you have like a countywide dispatch, they may have to go to, say, like we call it fire ground. Like where it's like there's a whole separate channel and like basically frequency that they can use just for talking about that one particular MCI, right? And there may be others too. You may be in a system that has 4 or 5 different sub channels and things that you can move away from, but that may be part of the job of whoever's on the, hey, this is getting too hectic on the radio. There's too many things coming in. I need to talk to just the people I need to talk to over here on this radio. It may mean that the guy who's in charge has to start carrying multiple radios.
One thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention is when the commander is selecting their location for their command post, they do want to ensure that they're not in the hot zone or the warm zone.
Oh, sure.
That command post needs to be that command post needs to be stepped back into the cold zone where they can see the active scene, they can see the hot zone, if you will, but they are not in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a good callback to our hazmat incident or hazmat episode.
Yep.
Usually upwind and uphill. That's kind of like the like if there's any chance of a hazmat thing, upwind, uphill with a good view of what's going on.
I think the commander should just get a helicopter. Say, hey, listen, I need a helicopter here now. I need to get a better view of the situation, and I want to feel cool.
You might have people fighting for the command then. They'll be like, I get to ride around in a helicopter.
Well, that would be a wonderful difference then.
Yeah.
Not it.
Yeah. So they need to communicate. It's keeping order. It's making sure that the communications are coming across clearly, that you are, letting people know what you need.
Right.
That's really the job. Like, hey, figuring out what your people on the ground need and getting those resources to them. Right. The other thing that the incident commander, what they really emphasize with this stuff is not relying on that radio whenever possible and emphasizing face-to-face communications. That's why you have a physical location of the command post. It's so that they know where the guy in charge is and they can go walk and talk to them,
right?
And show and talk with the hands and do all the things. He may even have a cool little board set up with a map and a schematic of where people are. That is by far more efficient than trying to communicate everything that you need over radios. It also means that you have, it's just more efficient. It's a better way of communicating face to face.
People work better face to face. That is just a reality.
And it's less confusing.
Yes,
that's the big thing.
Because if you've never talked on a radio, and you will at some point, it can get very confusing. And when you add stress to that, it becomes the audio. I need it now. I need it now. And it's assuming you've hit the button to even be able to talk.
Right. Yeah, people in general, they take a while to kind of use radios efficiently or effectively. The other thing that you may have to consider being the guy in charge or gal in charge is that you may need to delegate the responsibility of using that radio itself. Sure. Like if you as the incident commander are taking so much time basically answering the phone or talking on the radio, you may have to designate an aide. Sure. Like, hey, I need you to be my communicator on the radios.
I need you to write shit down.
Yeah, and I need you to write stuff down to be my scribe so that I can keep my head up and working on that. Obviously, this is like what may happen the larger a scene gets. So it's not typical this is what's going to be doing, but like this is what the scalability of ICS allows for, and it kind of coaches people like delegate the things that you don't need to be doing yourself.
Because that's sometimes the hardest thing to do.
Oh, it's so hard because everything that especially from the EMS side, everything we've done so far, everything we've strived for the last 9 months is for us to be better at doing it. And this is literally the exact opposite of, okay, well, I need you to throw all that stuff away and think and communicate and not put your hands on anything. It's like, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to be like, can I just do some CPR somewhere?
Yeah, right.
That would be a lot. That's an easier life when you start thinking about this stuff. But, so there's the thing that they ultimately, all of this communication, all of this organization, what it should be emphasizing and enabling is a chain of command.
Yes.
Because along with what that commander should be doing in terms of delegating out to people, what that system dissuades or de-incentivizes is a term called freelancing.
Right.
And this is an important one to understand because freelancing in an MCI is very bad. Essentially, it means people showing up and doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Which is bad for multiple reasons. Because if you're kind of coming into an organized system, it throws off all of the other cogs in the system that are working. It may not, to you, it may not seem like it's the most efficient thing happening, but you throwing chaos into there can have downstream effects in a lot of things. It could be that you're not recognized. Like if you're the one that's quote unquote freelancing, just like coming in and choosing your own objectives, that can really put you into a dangerous situation.
Sure.
You may not have all the information on where you should or shouldn't go. You may be putting yourself into danger. But really it's a disruption. And in this type of thing, yeah, can a large organization deal with disruption? Sure, but it can compound and it can become a bad thing. Like it can get worse and worse if they're, especially if that's not being nipped in the bud.
I mean, those problems are not going to progress linear. They're going to go a geometric progression. They're going to keep multiplying on each other.
Yeah. So that organization, emphasizing it and establishing it early and making sure that it's well communicated, who's in charge, that things are going as smooth as possible. That is absolutely critical for an MCI to really prevent things from just going chaotic. Right. That is what it's meant to prevent. But yeah, like don't let people go rogue. Like that's where things is all of a sudden you have, say you have an MCI and like, you don't have a strong presence and like all of your EMS teams are coming in and like, they just decide to treat whoever they're going to treat.
Because they're not getting orders.
Well, they're not getting orders or they're just seeing what they see and go, oh, I'm going to choose what's most important to me. Okay. Well, they may start taking people off the scene. All of a sudden you have no idea where patients have gone. What patients are being triaged. Like, are they taking priority patients? Are they not? What hospital are they going to? So like there are key questions in there that really should be organized and should be tracked, because all of those things just going wherever they want is going to really throw things for a loop.
100%.
And furthermore, aside from the organization side, it could mean bad things for patients. And that's obviously, one of our biggest priorities is we want to make sure that the patients, we're doing the most good that we can do at any one time.
If an ambulance decides, oh, this guy here, I can get him off scene. He's moving on his own. Okay, well, what if they needed your ambulance to come in and get a red tag?
Yeah.
Like that's again, you're introducing chaos into a situation that's already chaotic and stressful.
Yeah. Okay, so we know the primary roles, the things that the commander really should be doing, and there's a lot of nuance to this stuff. Obviously, you can get a lot of training in ICS and MCI, incident type stuff, and there's so much more. But this is just the general overview of like organization, communication, and recognizing what you need on scene. The last thing I'll just mention about what the commander's responsibility is safety.
Right.
Now, you may have a safety officer whose job it is to like, ensure safety and things are going, people are staying safe. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the job of all of us in emergency services is to not make any situation worse.
Right.
So
do no harm.
Yeah. Do no harm. And the last thing that we want to see is first responders get hurt.
Yep.
So the incident commander is really like, that is one of their top priorities, is making sure that all those people responding are also being safe and that they're being protected. Right. So to prevent further injury is one of the topmost things for an incident commander. And that could require like setting boundaries, restricting access to the scene from the public and from other responders,
news agencies.
Yeah. Like establishing staging areas. Those are the things that we need to be doing, because that is an important way to make sure that people aren't putting themselves in harm's way. So those are really the big things. We're making sure that the most good is being done at any one time. And there are a lot of things that the commander has to worry about. However, the cool thing about the ICS system or just these systems in general is that can scale. And it's really it's about making sure that, you can delegate some of that stuff out when you need to. Okay. So we know what the commander does, the incident commander, but we're EMS.
No, this is where we talk about police.
Yeah, like what do the police do and what do the fire? We're going to skip right to like, okay, if we hopefully, I know this like I'm sure nobody wants to become or be forced into the incident commander role, right? It seems like it's way bigger than any of us really signed up for, but I'm sure there's a time for everyone, right? If you least suspect it, you're elected, right?
That's what I was trying to remember. That's the
Sometimes
term.
you have to do the stuff.
If you're wondering who's it's probably you.
If you're looking around going, somebody here needs to do something, it's probably going to be you, right?
You just elected yourself.
Yep.
Yes, you did.
And the hope is that like we get to focus more on our roles in EMS, right? So what are we doing on scene specifically? So say the incident command structure has been established. There's a commander, there's probably an operations chief, or maybe the operations chief and the commander are the same person. But let's assume there's somebody in charge. There's a command. What should we be doing on scene, like in regards to EMS, medical services? So you
could have an EMS branch director that is specifically in charge of maybe not the whole incident, all right, but they're in charge of that EMS component.
So what are we doing as part of that branch?
Okay, so and here's I want to throw a caveat out. Not every mass casualty incident is going to get an EMS branch established, right? So we have to understand that it may not it may not be a thing, but if it is a thing, it's usually going to be a larger MCI. And that EMS branch works underneath the operations branch or operations section. And if it's a smaller MCI, the incident commander, you may report directly to that incident commander versus there being a whole separate operations chief. So during a large MCI delegation, as the incident grows, EMS adds supervisors to the different branches. And you may have these different components, these different functions under the EMS branch, right? So extrication. Let's say we have structural collapse, or we have instability during a MCI level motor vehicle crash, right? There's going to have to be a group of folks that are in charge of getting people out of those situations, right? They're going to be, cutting on cars. They're going to be throwing wheel chocks. They're going to be putting cribbing under things to make sure it's stable and safe to get in to rescue these people. So you may have a supervisor that is directly in charge of extrication. Okay. You're going to pull all the resources together for this MCI. So you may even have somebody that's in charge of staging. Right. So they're managing all the resources for the EMS branch as they come in. So, hey, they're in charge of when does an ambulance get sent to the location to start transporting folks. They're in charge of managing those folks there. You may have a triage supervisor, right? And that triage supervisor is going to be in control of that triage area or that casualty collection point, and ultimately going to take charge of that. You may have a treatment supervisor inside of that casualty collection point, where their entire job is making sure that the casualties in the casualty collection point are getting treatment, right? And appropriate treatment. And then you're going to have transport. So the staging person, they're in charge of the resources as they come in. The transport supervisor is going to be in charge of folks as they're taking people out to appropriate facilities. Right. And then, one of the big things that often gets overlooked but shouldn't is rehab. Right. So as providers are coming in and they're providing care and they're doing the job, eventually they're going to start to get fatigued, and they're going to need a place that they can go to kind of decompress for a minute, maybe get something to drink, maybe use the bathroom, maybe get a little snack.
If it's really hot out, they may need a cooling tent or something along those lines.
Yep. They may need to, get in some clean clothes or something like that. Right. So these are all things that are taken into account for that rehab supervisor. At the end of the day, you're going to have one person that you report to during this incident, and you could be assigned to any of those different branch areas under the EMS branch.
Right.
Sure.
These are all different tasks that you could undertake.
And sometimes I would imagine some of those, like for instance, if you're resource limited and you have, somebody that's in charge of, say, like if there's 2 EMS supervisors on scene, one of them would probably take the treatment and medical, like the medical treatment role, and the other one may take more of the logistics role.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, well, there's one guy in charge of actual triage and treatment, and the other guy's in charge of transportation and staging and like the kind of more non-clinical stuff. But like those things can be split up, I imagine, in different ways or different combinations based off of who you have available and who can take on the responsibility. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. I do want to like address, kind of with a more narrow focus, the triage supervisor. This person's in that casualty collection point, and maybe you have that initial triage, right?
The primary triage.
Yep.
Yeah. That primary triage where you're going through, but then you're also doing that secondary triage in that casualty collection point. And this triage supervisor is going to help decide as folks come into that casualty collection point where they need to go. So they may even get an upgrade to their triage category at the door when the triage supervisor's there.
Right.
So this is typically ideally, we'd want a extremely knowledgeable and experienced EMS provider in this role, right? Somebody that's aware of the capabilities of the hospitals and the resources in your community, so they can sort of direct, where these folks need to go in that casualty collection point, and then if they're leaving that casualty collection point, where they may need to go as well. So they may have to call for additional help if needed, right? Because depending on the scope of the MCI, and they're gonna stay at the scene and assign and coordinate personnel, supplies, vehicles, equipment. They're going to, in that casualty collection point, they're basically the boss.
Yeah.
Got it.
So is the triage officer, are they treating, or are they?
No. They are, here's a analogy, right? In Roadhouse, the movie with Patrick Swayze.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
He's not the, the movie's about bouncers, but he's not the bouncer. He's the cooler.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the bouncers are the ones doing the thing in the club, and he's the one watching all the people and all the bouncers. And so if he needs to step in, okay, he can step in. But the triage officer is kind of like that. They're there to manage that casualty collection point and manage the casualties as they come in, and assign them appropriately. And they may delegate somebody to that specific task, but in general, their whole job is to manage the aspect of triage.
Now, if he's the only, like, say you have limited resources, is his primary responsibility going to be the actual, like the first thing he does on scene? Is it the primary triage? Like, is that what he jumps into right away, is like, assessing the patients?
Well, that's going to be, so when I think about the triage supervisor, I think about later down the road,
because he's going to be in the cold zone
when we've established that casualty collection point. That's what I think of when I think of the triage supervisor.
Sure.
The essentially what's going to happen is those initial units coming on scene are going to do that primary triage, or start to do that primary triage.
Sure, yeah.
And that may involve more than one person going around and doing that.
So let's use the thought experiment of a small scene, right?
Sure.
You're the first unit on scene. You have an EMT, like the example we did before, right? You have an EMT and a paramedic. Those two people are the first people there. You have two or three cars. Like one of those people essentially becomes the commander. The other one becomes the triage supervisor at that, or the triage officer at that point. Theoretically, according to this, the paramedic becomes the triage officer, right? Like his primary role is going to be patient treatment.
Well, not always.
Okay.
Again, I think the triage officer, this is, somebody's going to have to take command.
Sure. Yeah.
But it doesn't always have, that triage officer doesn't always have to be the most experienced. So that for that primary triage, right, at the onset of response, see, and this is a delineation, right? This triage supervisor, again, they're going to be hanging out in that casualty collection point doing that secondary triage.
Yeah.
That's going to be the main thing. But yeah, you can have that primary triage can be that most experienced provider, but sometimes they advise against it, right? And this is just food for thought.
Yeah.
One of the reasons they advise against it is because as paramedics, we want to help the most people that we can, and we may get sucked down a rabbit hole trying to help somebody and not helping the most people that we can.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes it can be a hindrance to have more knowledge about EMS, right? Whereas like maybe an EMT would walk through and they wouldn't have the depth of knowledge as a paramedic, but they would be like, okay, well, this person through, either assault or start triage, they already get a black tag.
Sure.
Right.
So my point is though, regardless of who it is, at that initial onset of just the very moment things get established, somebody's going to be in charge of assessing patients, and that person assessing patients is in charge of, well, really they're in charge of everything at that point. The triage, the treatment, the transport, until other people get there and can start taking on some of those roles. But somebody's going to be in charge of patient care.
Yeah.
And then most likely would transition into being the triage supervisor, managing the triage that's happening on the X or on the, in the actual incident itself. To the casualty collection points, and then the secondary triage, which I assume you're going to go into secondary triage, but like, so there's a difference between doing triage and managing the overall process of triage, right? So
yes,
and sometimes we have to make that distinction of, as the people who may be in that situation when we arrive on scene, if we're the ones designated to be like, hey, you're in charge of triage, that may require us, I assume, to start getting in there and actually triaging the patients, right? And
really quickly, if you're catching this episode and you didn't catch the previous episode where we talked about triage is a French word and it means to sort. And so we are sorting casualties based upon the severity and lethality of the injuries that they have.
Right.
And so we're prioritizing those folks based on those injuries. So it's who's going to die no matter what we do, who's going to die, or who's going to live no matter what we do, and then who's going to die if we don't do something right now. Right. That's a way to think about it. And so we have to make that determinations as we are triaging. But yes, Mike, there is a distinction between that primary triage and management and assessment and treatment of those patients at the onset of an MCI, and then later down the road, providing that triage supervisor and the control of the casualty collection point that they have, and triaging folks as they come into that casualty collection point, and then advising transport as they go out of that casualty collection point. So that's one of their tasks. And so the triage supervisor in that casualty collection point, this is going to be the secondary triage that somebody gets. So again, it happens in that casualty collection point triage area. Patients are sorted into their treatment groups by their priority, their triage tag. And so essentially you're going to put all the greens of the walking woundeds in one area. You're going to put all the yellows in one area. You're going to put all the reds in one area, and then you're going to put all the black tags somewhere else. It is It is a good idea to when we're establishing a casualty collection point that we kind of sequester the black tags or the expectants in their own area. It can be demoralizing if they're just kind of laid out in the open. So we want to be respectful about it, but we want to also keep in mind that that can hinder people you're trying to save. It can be a distraction to folks that are trying to work in that environment. We also have to have somebody, a triage supervisor may delegate somebody to go and be with those folks.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is not a task for everybody, but it does need to be taken care of.
And depending on if I'm trying to remember back to what we went through in like the SALT triage, sometimes depending on what triage your system is using, those black tags, depending on how quickly the incident is developing, may not be moved at all. Right.
That's correct.
They may be designated to stay on scene, and they may not even make it to a casualty collection point.
Right.
Because that's according to whatever the most. But if it's going on long enough, likely there will be at some point where you start moving black tags to their own space. Right.
Correct. Yeah. That is a possibility. Yeah.
Sure.
Right. There's a morgue, if you will. Sometimes in these mass casualty incidents.
Right.
So each treatment area should have a treatment supervisor. This is an instance where that treatment supervisor is going to be your most experienced provider. Mm-hmm. Right. And the way that it was taught to me specifically in the context of an active threat, active shooter is you have the pit boss who's, basically walking around and there to provide like high level treatments to folks. Mm-hmm. And then the pit boss has his little minions that are providing assessment and minor treatments to folks. And when they encounter something, they're like, "Hey boss, I've got an injury over here that I think that, we need your skill set for." And so they'll have their little bag that they carry and do whatever they need to do, whether it's an advanced airway or some other sort of more ALS focused procedure.
Mm-hmm. I think being Jonathan's minions would be a good job for us.
You actually are. You didn't realize it until this point, but you are my minions and have been for a while.
He's been developing us since our EMS birth. That's why he puppet mastered us.
Do we get yellow outfits, and do we get to choose how many eyes we have?
Yeah.
You get one eye max. That's for sure. Mike is a 2-eye minion.
Then I want it to be a big one.
Supposedly, those are correlated to intelligence in the Minions universe. I've heard that. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. I've never seen any Minions movies.
Oh, you're missing out.
I know, and I have a kid too. So like,
you got it. That has to change.
Yeah, I can. I would enjoy speaking fake Italian though. I do know that.
Mm-hmm. So.
Anyway,
each treatment area is going to have a treatment supervisor. Again, this is going to be that more experienced, most experienced paramedic or ALS level provider if you have them, and if you don't, it's going to be the most experienced EMT.
Sure,
in this instance,
whoever's most suited to be the one making the decision should be in that role.
So, and because depending on the nature or depending on the triage category your group of patients got in the treatment area of the casualty collection point, depends on how quickly you're going to reassess them, right? But if they are a yellow or a red, they're definitely going to get reassessed every 5 minutes at the
right, just like we would in an ambulance.
Just like we would in an ambulance. Oftentimes are walking wounded, and we have to have people that stay with them because somebody may have an injury that was not apparent. They were walking wounded, and then they may deteriorate into a greater triage category where they need more attention. So we do have to have people there to watch them, but oftentimes we need those folks just being observed and making sure that they're staying safe, and sometimes even providing that psychological first aid like we talked about earlier in the episode.
Well, that brings up a really good point though, because in terms of secondary triage, I don't think we can overemphasize the point that The primary triage is about sorting those patients into those 4 categories, right? The red, the yellow, the green, and the black, or whatever colors your service uses, like fuchsia and orange, because they're weird. But like, that's the primary triage, right? Getting those patients over. And there may be separate casualty collection points, or there may not be, right? But as they're sorted, the secondary triage, to Jonathan's point, is about, assessing those patients again. It's a reassessment, right? You have to re-triage them constantly, because like, if the longer these things go on, you only have so many people that can be transported at any one point. Like your yellow that, you initially saw, okay, well, they had controlled bleeding, and, like say they had a severe bleeding on an arm, but they can follow commands. They're just non-ambulatory, right? So like you put them initially into a yellow category. They may even originally be in a green, but all of a sudden, say they lose pallor, right? Or they look like they're not perfusing well. They may be experiencing hypovolemic shock, and you go, oh wow, that person looks really sick now. Because maybe they have some uncontrolled bleeding, maybe have some internal bleeding. So all of a sudden we're like, okay, that person is now more important, and we shift them up to the red, because even after they've been sorted the first time, now we resort them again and be like, hey, we need to get this person into the red category so that they go before all the other yellows or greens, right?
You have to understand that none of this is static. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. And if you're not anticipating that, then you're going to wind up with problems.
Yeah.
And during the secondary triage, we're talking about transport. That treatment supervisor is going to have a list running of what his casualties, injuries are, and the severity, right? Because not every yellow and not every red are created equal, right? So he's going to look at, or they're going to look in their group of casualties that they're, supervising over in their treatment area, and they're going to make a determination of, all right, which one needs to go first, right? And so when your transport people show up, they may say, hey, we can take 1 red, or we can take 2 yellows, or we can take a green and a yellow. Right, they may say something to that effect, and it's up to the lead triage supervisor to work with the treatment supervisors and make a determination of who needs to go.
Sure. Right.
So, and to your point, that those categories are fluid, and they may fluctuate as somebody gets a little better or gets worse depending on what the circumstances are. So we've talked about the triage supervisor. We talked about everything that happens in the casualty collection point up to this point, and now we're ready to take people to the hospital. But we've got to get them there. We've got to transport them there.
Yeah.
So you are going to have a transportation supervisor, and they're going to transport based on what resources they have available as far as ambulances are concerned and provider level, and what triage category somebody is. Essentially, the sickest patients are going to get sent to the appropriate facilities first. And one of the things that we talk about during MCIs and training is we don't want to move the MCI to the hospital.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
So
bad.
we want to. It's one thing to take the sickest people first, but it's a whole other thing to take all the sick people to not an appropriate facility, and now the MCI is just in a different location.
Right.
So we want to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, actually, one of the things, again, I saw at EMS World Expo, I believe it was a talk by one of the doctors that was at the hospital in Las Vegas that was like the primary hospital for
the shooting,
like the Mandalay Bay shooting. Yep. And man, I wish I could remember the exact situation, because he was so good at kind of explaining how they so apparently they had just done some training scenarios.
Yeah, they had just done a rehearsal before that happened.
Yeah, and that kept it really fresh for them. But even then, they were so easily overwhelmed by the number of people that would be coming in and like the self extricated or the personal vehicle wounded that were showing up at the hospital doors. It completely overwhelmed the entire EMS system, or sorry, not EMS, the entire hospital system in a matter of minutes.
Yes.
They succeeded and they did really well because of their training and the preparations they had in place. They had a disaster plan, specific to their hospital, but that was, thankfully they had that, but like the coordination of getting those things to different hospitals and like not overwhelming, like, hey, we got 5 hospitals in the area. Okay. Well, we have 200 people. We can't send them all to the level 1 trauma center, right? Yeah. That's the most capable hospital we have, but they can only take 20.
Yeah.
What do we do with the others?
I saw an excellent breakdown of that whole thing. It was something that was on Netflix, and it was a breakdown from moment to moment, and they were talking to individual EMS operators as well as the various hospitals that people went to. And just the way, like you had said, one of the reasons they succeeded as much as they did is they just had done a reversal.
Yeah, like
it had just happened. So it was very fresh. Everyone was on board with it. But even that, like, you had one side of that whole facility get overwhelmed with all these people, but you also had people shooting in every direction.
Yeah.
So,
but by shooting in every, you mean
running, escaping in every direction.
Overwhelming all of the hospitals
Absolutely.
within like a what is it, like a 2 mile radius or 3, 4, however many miles there are between like 4 or 5 hospitals.
Yeah. So, and one thing to mention about transportation, right? So the staging supervisor, right? Because the ambulances are going to be staged away from the casualty collection point.
Yeah.
They're going to communicate with the triage supervisor, and they're also going to communicate with the transportation supervisor to request ambulances coming in.
I would imagine sometimes the transportation and staging role are probably intertwined. May even be the same person, where it's like, you're managing ambulances coming in and out, right?
Right. It could be that. But the staging supervisor in general tracks the ambulances, that tracks the crews, and then the resources associated with that particular ambulance and crew. The transportation supervisor is going to decide who goes where. And they may actually even be in the casualty collection point making that decision, right?
And tracking where they go, right? Like,
yes.
Like you could have a family that's an incident, and it doesn't mean the family's going to one place.
Yeah. Right. And it may not even be all of the patient's demographics and name and information. It may just be, you may be working so swiftly that it's like, oh, well, we have a 54-year-old male wearing a red shirt with an injury to the right arm being transported to the, Mercy General Hospital, like at this time. Like it may, whatever information they can get, they're trying to track all that stuff.
Yeah. Right. So, and one of the big things about it is ambulances and resources are going to be requested to come into the triage casualty collection point treatment area. An ambulance should not freelance itself into that area. They should wait until they are requested to come in. But yeah, so transportation is going to track patient priority, the destination. They're going to actually make the determination as to which hospital they should take a particular patient to, because they're going to communicate with the triage supervisor, and they're going to let them know what they've got. And then they're going to track the destination of what hospital they go to, as well as which particular ambulance or crew or unit took that patient and where.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, is the person or the person in charge of transportation, typically they're going to be the ones coordinating too with hospitals, right? Like are they the ones reaching out to the hospitals, say, how many beds do you have? Like what can you take? Like, are they coordinating that stuff too?
I mean, that definitely can be the case. That to me seems like something that they would have another person delegating.
Yeah, like if they have another person they can send, have help with that. But
yeah, that they would have delegated that to. It's the scope of the incident is going to kind of be the determining factor, but it is definitely possible that the transportation person could could be again, anytime there's a supervisor, these are the folks that should be more experienced, and unfortunately we're going to run out of experienced providers at some point. But fundamentals are really what are going to save people's lives in an MCI, and as providers we should all have some level of mastery or understanding of the fundamentals. So But having an experienced provider as your triage officer and having an experienced provider as your transportation officer, so you can understand the resource capabilities of your facilities local to you, is going to be important.
Right.
So there are going to be some things related to communicating with the hospitals that we want to keep in mind. Hospitals do have to be notified of the disaster, right? And I've been in some hospitals when maybe not a disaster or an MCI has happened, but they've got a critical call about to come in, and so everybody that is on a special team, a rapid response team, comes and gets ready. They take their positions in their specified location. And they're ready for that patient coming in. Well, that same sort of thing is going to happen on a larger scale with the MCI. So it may be, an all call for the hospital. So if you're not involved in critical patient care in the heat of the moment, you may be called down to the emergency room to start providing care.
Do you want to take a wild guess as to what show has a really good example?
An excellent example
of a hospital MCI.
I've almost mentioned it at least 3 times during the last half hour of conversation.
Is it a show that's set in a major city in Pennsylvania?
Oh, it sure is.
Yes.
Maybe even the home of the paramedic program in the United States.
The
Pit. That season 1, episode 10 and 11
is amazing.
So good. The MCI stuff that they go through in that, it's heartbreaking, but it's also super interesting to watch from the hospital perspective, especially now that we have a sense of how it works on the out of hospital, the pre-hospital perspective. Just makes me even love that show even more, understanding how all that stuff works.
And they literally show every aspect of it, up into including the overwhelming nature of it, and people just breaking down because they just can't take it anymore.
We talked about the emotional aspect of MCIs earlier. That is a great episode for that. You know what? We could obviously go on for like 20 minutes just talking about how that episode does really good things. You should do highest recommendation. Watch it because you will get it is not pre-hospital, it's in hospital, but it is such a great representation of all these different facets that happen with triage and treatment and secondary triage and emotional impact, all of it.
And the reality is understanding what's happening past your responsibilities is only going to help you do your job better.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you're going to have a better understanding of what you're bringing your patients to.
Yep.
So again, again, we do want to notify the hospitals early. This could be something that we delegate to dispatch at the onset of an MCI. Right? Hey, I need you to call, in addition to calling for all these resources, I would like you to call the local hospitals and say that we've got an MCI going on and that they should expect casualties.
Yeah.
That is something that is a possibility. Again, I want to emphasize, we do not want to move the MCI into the hospital. Right. So we have to be judicious about where we're going to send people and understand what their capabilities are.
I have a question for you, Jonathan.
Yes.
Now, is this the time where we should be doing like 14-minute hospital notifications where we're going through all the vitals and history of present illness for each patient over a radio or?
Yeah. We think he's 53, maybe 54. His name is Tom.
He once had a hangnail on his right toe.
Yeah, he might
the
have
pinky toe, not the big toe.
He might have a peanut allergy, but he's not really sure. Yeah. He's never really experienced it.
This is probably not the time for that.
No? Okay.
No, definitely not the time for that. So we do want to be more brief, and we may just refer to them by their triage category, right? So we have a priority 1 patient, a respiratory problem, and we're en route 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So just the facts. Yeah.
Very quick. Hey, I've got 1 patient. Here's what's wrong with them. And we're on our way, and it'll be about 5 minutes.
Because I would imagine the hospital or hospitals at that point are probably getting possible multiple notifications in a row, like
sure.
you know, like, and it's going to keep coming, like it's depending on the size of whatever this event is.
Yep. And so, you know, as a transport ambulance during this, you're going to arrive, you're going to give your patient care report. It may be brief, and you may not have the full scope of information. You know, should we take vital signs? Yes, but you may not have the ability to do a full set of vital signs. We might still be dealing with life threats at this point during transport, and that's as far as we've gotten, right? But we're gonna give our handover report to the staff at the hospital. They're gonna take control of the patient, and then you're gonna get as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You're gonna get your ambulance back into call answering shape, and you're going to go right back to the staging area and be ready to take the next casualty from this MCI. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to wait till you're assigned by the staging supervisor.
Now the question is, do you take the 30 seconds to grab an Uncrustable on the way out?
Man, maybe.
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, it may mean that you might lose a patient. It could happen, but.
Well, okay. Wow, you go real hard in the paint there, Max.
The levity we were trying to introduce was just
shut it down.
Gone.
Yeah. No, but like, you know, I mean, this is a serious question. Like, if this is a prolonged thing, if there's a moment where you're like, man, I need to take care of at least 30 seconds of self-care. I need to go pee. Right. This is the point, right? Like, preemptively, as soon as you drop, like, you know, transfer that patient, yeah, you need to get back there quick because there may be the need for additional help. But like, remember, there's a reason why there's such a thing as like rehab at an MCI. Like, you need rehab as well. So like, it's a job. We got to make sure that we can keep doing it for the sustained time.
The real question is, let's say you're an hour and a half and you've transported 5 patients or 8, and all there is strawberry.
I will, I'll die of starvation. I'll just wait. I'll wait until I collapse later and just, you know, just tell that hospital how absolutely atrocious and mean they are to EMS for only providing strawberry.
If they do have grape, do you grab one?
No, you grab all of them.
Exactly.
You grab a handful.
Thank you.
You can't take them all. You leave at least one behind, so you're not that guy. No, you don't take a bite out of it.
You come back and get the last one.
Well, I think minimum 2. You grab 2 because you know what? Fuck everyone else.
Hey, the most important person on scene is me.
Yeah, in that room right there, you are the only one on scene.
Yes.
So that's
and your partner doesn't count.
Yeah. No.
If you'd like to hear me chastise Mike and Max, drop me a line.
No, you take one. You take one, or you grab one for your partner too, because he's probably already trying to get the monitor back together in the back of the ambulance, and you shove it into his face. Be like, "Hey, eat this, so I don't have to pick you up off the floor later."
Serious question. So, in this situation with this going on, and the reality of just having to clean the back of the ambulance, how worried are you going to be about it being perfect? Or are you going to get it as best as you can and get back into service?
This is a quick and dirty, right?
Yeah.
We don't want
or quick and not dirty, as the case may be.
Well, quick and not dirty, yeah. So, the scene from Black Hawk Down where he's like, "Hey, you might want to wash the blood out." Okay, if we got blood all over the place, we might want to wash the blood out of the ambulance before we take it back to the staging area. But if a quick wipe down gets everything good to go and back in service, then let's do that. Let's get back in service, get back to the staging area, and wait till we're assigned to our next transport.
I'd say the priority is absolutely the gurney and you
Yeah, don't forget the stretcher.
And don't
or yourself. I'm here to help you, covered in blood.
And like if it's like blood on the floor, I'm not saying leave it, but like whatever. Like there's a reason why they have mops usually near the entrance of emergency departments for the ambulances. Is like, hey, do what you can,
And here's I have a pet peeve when it comes to MCI training and MCI stuff. In actuality, I'm gonna tell you guys this.
Everyone stand by. Hold on. Hold on to your butts.
The stretcher, good movie reference. The stretcher stays with the ambulance and the crew that it's attached to.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. And the stretcher only goes into the triage or treatment area to grab a patient and go immediately back to the ambulance. It does not go into the scene. Period. End of story.
Okay. So you don't just chuck that thing down the road and wave to it.
You don't just line up all your stretchers.
What I'm saying is, if you have a whole bunch of people that are sick and hurt and injured, it doesn't go towards them in the hot zone. It may go into that triage area and that treatment area to get them to take them immediately to the ambulance. But that stretcher stays with that ambulance.
Yeah, I'll agree.
That makes sense.
That is it. But people don't think about that because they're so used to taking that stretcher everywhere. No.
All right. Well, now we've heard the law set down by Jonathan on the rules of transport.
Yes.
But I just to wrap that up, I think the communication aspect, I don't think you can overemphasize communication when it comes to MCI, especially with the hospitals themselves, with your branch director, with the incident commander.
It's all going to fall apart if you don't have it.
Yeah. The first thing to fall apart when shit hits the fan is always going to be communication. And it's essential to organization. And those are the key words of this entire episode, right? Organization, communication, delegation.
Yep.
That is the story of MCIs. It's not, holy shit, this is a problem. It's, hey, let's rely on skills and things that we don't flex very often and employ them in ways that we can bring a lot of good and change to whatever this kind of seemingly insurmountable problem is. We work it, we break it down, we make it, it's honestly, this is really very much related to the how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
I mean, take a deep breath. This is not something that's going to be quick. You're going to be there all night. Yeah, this is a marathon. Yeah. So if you have to pace yourself, otherwise you're not any good to anybody.
And I mean, hey, you might get some overtime. So
exactly.
there's always a silver lining to some of this stuff. But yeah, I think that's a really good rundown. And obviously, there are more resources out there.
Sure.
There are specific MCI training courses. Actually, I think I will be probably seeing some of that in TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, in when I take it in Orlando. There is obviously the NIMS, and that's the National Emergency Management System training that is offered through the federal government, through FEMA and all this stuff. Take it, learn the stuff, because it could really come into play. And, I think, not to wax poetic for a second, I think that's the difference between people who treat EMS as a job versus those that treat EMS as a career, right? The people who are really diving into this stuff to learn how to be, to deal with all different types of incidences, the ones that learn to not only help the immediate thing right now, but also the, how do I become a better leader? How do I become a better organizer? How do I help situations that are sometimes growing beyond the scope of what we normally deal with? And I think the people who tend to really kind of dive into that stuff tend to take EMS or at least from limited experience talking to people, that's the role that you kind of fall into when you start progressing towards, becoming a supervisor, a lieutenant, a captain, or whatever exists in your organization.
And as a student that's going through EMT school, if that's what you're doing, you're listening to this, the NIMS training is very much like a checkbox. Like, oh, I got that done. Move on to the other stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much information in there. It behooves you to go back. Behooves.
The second use of behooving tonight.
Yeah, you should go back over it, because the reality is it's dry, it's boring, it is a trudge to get through. But you should go back over it.
Yeah.
Because it is not something that you're going to be touching on a regular basis. And those are the skills that'll just evaporate.
Yeah. And I think it's when you really break it down, you start looking at hopefully the conversations tonight can help you think through this in a less dry way, because it really is fascinating. It really is a effective tool, a structure, a playbook, if you will, for dealing with things that seem crazy.
Yeah.
And bringing some order to the chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think that's a pretty good, I think we've managed to get through all of it. However, there is one thing we mentioned in our primary triage medical term of the week.
We did.
I don't know if we mentioned it yet in this episode, but there's a very important and intrinsic tool used in triage.
100%. And that would be triage tags.
So our tool of the trade this week is
triage tags.
Triage tags.
And these are going to be identifiers that are telling not just the hospitals what's going on, but also other providers, like what is wrong with this patient. So what are they? Triage tags are specialized color-coded medical tags kept on ambulance that prioritize patient care and track casualties during an MCI.
Okay.
That is what they are.
So tags.
They are tags. So like when I first saw this, I immediately popped in my head toe tags. These are not toe tags. But it's a way that a provider can come along to a patient and say, okay, this is a priority 1 patient. It will have a breakdown of what may be wrong with them. It also has a way to track these people through a barcode system. There's a tear-off tag on these that is kept, and that way the people can be tracked through their travels.
Well, okay. So let's not to say that that's not an important thing. I would say it's not on every set of because there's probably a bunch of different triage tags out there. Your service may use ones that have some level of digital scanning capability, but for the most part, the important part is that it's communicating some basic demographic or some basic HPI information, like possibly what's wrong with the patient. But even more apparent than that is going to be their condition, their prioritization, right? Like whether or not and you used the term priority 1 before, but that could be in your service, red could be orange, whatever. But like in the one that we've been using in here, the one we're most familiar with, like the if you see red on that tag, if it's a red tag, that's the most critical patient. A yellow is the next most critical. A green is like after that. And then black is unfortunately somebody that we're going to have to worry about later. Yeah. After all that, after we get through the other ones.
Yeah. So a couple things about them. Again, it's a universal communication tool, ensuring that paramedics, litter bearers, and incoming hospital staff can identify the patient's medical urgency instantly without repeating long assessments. So it's a shorthand for them so they know what they're being given. They're generally weather resistant. There's a couple different brands of them, but the idea is it's a synthetic material. It's waterproof. And they're not going to curl or smear when exposed to rain, mud, or chemical contamination.
Imagine that's probably important for the type of environments we may experience MCIs in.
Exactly. They use a secure attachment method. They feature a heavy-duty elastic or cotton band that tightly fastens the tag to a patient's wrist, ankle, or sturdy clothing. And they have abbreviated documentation. The physical card includes specialized compact check boxes for vitals, basic interventions that have been done, contamination status, and personal demographics.
Okay.
So
it makes sense.
It's giving them that shorthand. That way, that person that's bringing that patient in doesn't have to repeat all those things. They can immediately see what's going on and then take that patient to the care they need.
So, for instance, if it's if the patient's been triaged on scene, say that they were initially not breathing, their head was repositioned based off of the triage category, that typically wouldn't be something that's super apparent in like just treatment. Like it's not like a tourniquet that you could see on somebody's arm or appendage. So that would repositioned airway, started breathing. You could put that onto a triage tag to say this 100%. Is why this person was put into a red category.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And then, how do we use them? So paramedics use standardized systems like STAR Triage we talked about before to evaluate victims' respiration, perfusion, mental status in under 60 seconds. And it's called RPM.
Right. Yeah, we did that.
Again, you have patient tracking. These tags provide a unique sequential identification number and detachable barcode strips. So it is pretty common with the different brands. But again, find out what you have on your service.
Right. Yeah. However they work, I'm sure there's multiple different like scanning things.
And it's important to have some of this information that is very clear because you do have people that cannot tell the difference between red and green.
Yeah. Some of us.
So the reality is that it can't just rely on that color code system. It has to have the basic information. They help with loading the ambulance in coordination with that. And the main thing is it's a dynamic continuity of care because the patient's condition can deteriorate or improve, and they allow emergency workers in the treatment and transport sectors to adjust the visible color category during secondary assessments.
Yeah, and I would imagine we have not been in an MCI.
Nope.
But charting is something that is typically a little bit labor intensive.
Just a bit.
And I know it's like it takes me probably twice as long to write a chart as it does to actually run the call.
Well, you do it after every call, right? You have it completed before you're back to the.
Oh, yeah. It's totally done before we go back and service.
And no matter what, it's done before the end of the shift.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
100%. But what I'm getting to is that if you're in this system where you have to keep going round and around, you're not going to have time to do the charting, or you're going to try later, but like you need something that can move with the patient that helps be a record.
Let's say you're in that ambulance and you have a 5-minute transport, which fantastic. If you have an MCI going on and you have a 5-minute transport, that's fantastic. There's no way in hell that you're going to be able to get all that information.
Yeah. What's more important
about it?
Yeah.
No.
What's more important, tracking it for the service and for billing purposes? Because let's face it, that's why most of the time we do charts. But or is it, hey, let's prioritize having this key information travel with the patient, be attached to them so that when you pass them off, there is a record of continuity of care.
Exactly. And whatever interventions have been done. I mean, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Little bit of history on the triage tag. So the physical triage tag was evolved from paper-based battlefield medical forms used in World War I and World War II. The concept of medical sorting dates back to the Napoleonic Wars, French word for sort. The transition from a doctor's notes to a highly visible universal tag system was driven by the rise of modern civil defense and civil mass casualty planning, and obviously the proliferation of EMS systems across the country. World War I interventions, the British and French militaries adopted 3 formal classification levels, which were sound familiar: minimally wounded, seriously wounded, and mortally wounded. So that's kind of that start of that sorting feature. In World War II, the U.S. Army introduced the emergency medical tag, and it carried a bold U marking, meaning urgent.
Okay.
Which makes sense. In 1975, Robert F. Blodgett, the Civil Defense Director of Jacksonville, Florida, he designed the medical emergency triage tag. And it used universal symbols: an ambulance, a turtle, a rabbit, and a skull, alongside the distinctive colors. So that was kind of the start of that. Instead of a word, it's a symbol that makes sense to someone if they're just looking at it.
Yeah, something to back up the color, so it's not just. And
you don't have to understand the English word that's on there. You're going to see that symbol.
Mm-hmm. So that I'm assuming the ambulance. Wait, an ambulance, a turtle, a rabbit, and a skull. So the turtle, I guess, is slow.
I would say that's a green tag.
But I have objections to these icons because like the ambulance to me would be like, oh, you need to move them first. But the rabbit also says you should move it first.
Fast. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
And then in 1983, the Newport Beach Fire Department and Hoag Hospital paramedics developed the START triage method, which then instituted all these things.
Yeah, like the most common form of triage being START, and now moving more towards the SALT method.
And now they've shifted to waterproof synthetic materials, and they also have integrated that tear off barcode so you can track patients.
Nice. You know what I've heard a lot of commotion about? Slap bracelets. Can you imagine why?
Where would you have seen something like that? I think it might have been
in the pit. Like, yes. I mean, honestly, I think as soon as that episode came out and people saw slap bracelets being used, I saw so many people talking about like the idea of like, oh my God, why doesn't everyone use those?
So a little ADD tangent. When I was in middle school, they were all the rave. And if a girl liked a guy, she would walk over and slap a bracelet on him.
Uh-huh.
And it's the same thing. It's just being reused for medical.
Yeah, slap bracelets. I mean, my kid loves slap bracelets too. I thought that was like, oh, that's clever. And like apparently nobody really uses them. And they brought them in for that show as like a kind of a unique, interesting
There's got to be a company making them right now.
Well, there might be, but it's like, they're just not in common use, but I guarantee that show will be a vessel of change
100%
within the medical community of people going like, oh, that is a really effective way to put something fast on somebody
100%.
With a color code system. I don't know. It's just, I feel like we talk about triage tape.
Yeah. So it's color coded tape. If you think about caution tape, it's kind of that same plasticky texture. So you just pull off a piece and tie it around somebody's wrist. Yeah,
it's surveyor's tape.
Yeah.
I think that's what they usually they use.
Yeah. I mean, you could use anything, but they follow the traditional, green, yellow, red, black.
That's a specific type of tape. Like it's it's like it's not sticky, right? Like it's
like it's plasticky.
It's a plasticky thing. Yeah, it's meant for like tying around trees and stuff, but they adopted it into EMS because it's easy to tear and tie on something and not slide off.
I would like to lobby for the slap bracelet because there's a dramatic flair to that.
Yeah, I mean I'm a fan of the tape is nice, like it's just a big old thing of duct tape. However, if you're re-triaging somebody, that's where things that are like really like hard to peel off come into play. Honestly, the slap bracelets seem so great. I've seen on those tags too that they sometimes have multiple rows, and you tear off one of them, and then basically what isn't there is what they get confusing to me.
They have them where they have the color code is actually a tear off.
Yeah, but like. That means that there's still some things left on the tag, and which one does it correspond to? Those get confusing, but I think like the surveyor's tape or the like a tag itself where, okay, you rip that tag off, put a new tag on, whatever the method is. Because even the slap bracelets, you'd have to take off a slap bracelet to put a different one on because you can't like just change what color it is. But they're all going to work in a different way. But
sure,
there are some that seem like they work better than others. Yeah. The slap bracelet's so cool. Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, that's thanks, Max, for walking us through triage tags. You know what? Let us know. You reach out to us. Tell us what triage tags your service.
I would love to hear that.
Are using, because I would love to. Yeah, we'd love to hear what type of things are out there. If you're using something unique or something that like you haven't seen somebody else use, because I'm sure there's a whole bunch.
Oh yeah, there's got to be.
Yeah. But cool. So that's our tool of the trade this week, which leads us into our final segment, brought to you by the debonair, the devilish, Jonathan Aldrich.
Now, last week We had our first not 3 for 3 in a while.
True. I think I had it wrong and you had it right. Is that?
No.
Oh, we both got it wrong. Yeah, it was the what was
hazmat transportation?
Yes, it was whether or not. Come on, I mean, it's like which had the most. Is it rail or roads?
Right.
I think our logic was sound, but obviously we were wrong. But let's see if we can redeem ourselves this week.
We have to.
We have to.
We have to.
For honor.
Exactly. It's imperative that we 100% get 3 for 3.
You got some questions for us this week, Jonathan?
I do have some questions for you guys. So hopefully you can step up to the plate and you can hit a home run on every single one of these.
See how much he's smirking?
He is.
I think he took pride in the fact that he tripped us up.
He was like, I got him. Mm-hmm. I've been trying for weeks. Mm-hmm. I got him.
I see how it is.
I didn't think those were that hard of questions, but
they weren't. I mean, there was just one that was like, come on, I'm not studying statistics of.
It's well, and that's the thing. It's like some of this is very like material specific. So if you're taking a hazmat awareness course, it's going to be very specific to that. But that's probably going to be part of your EMT.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, those were questions that you will see on the NR EMT exam. So
yep.
All right. So we're going to start with question number 1. Which of the following chest pain descriptions is most consistent with acute myocardial infarction? Answer 1. Sharp pain that worsens with inspiration. Answer 2. Crushing chest pain alleviated with rest. Answer 3. Burning chest pain. Answer 4. Crushing chest pain radiating to the neck with shortness of breath. So which one of those is most consistent with
locked in.
Yeah, locked in. Crushing chest pain, radiating to the neck with shortness of breath. 100%
locked in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you guys want the answer?
Well, okay. Let's
do what we do.
Let's do the due diligence.
We can talk about it after.
Well,
do you?
He's making me rethink because he's hesitating. No, tell us. What is the answer, please?
No, right. Don't tell us. Let's work through like we normally do. Let him hang. So, you have sharp pain that worsens with inspiration.
What would that be like?
That would be
probably like an injury, like a traumatic injury,
right? Respiratory related.
Well, it could be, but like if it worsens with inspiration, you're probably talking about something in the skeletal system, like a broken rib or something along those lines.
Yeah,
because it's you can make it worse or better. So that's probably indicative of an injury.
Yeah, you have the one they threw out there to try and hook you with, which is chest pain alleviated with rest.
Well, specifically chying chest pain
alleviated with
crushing
rest.
Is the key word there because that is something that's often used for myocardial infarctions, right?
Yes.
Now, crushing chest pain alleviated with rest. What does alleviated with rest mean?
I don't know.
It would likely be more indicative of I don't want to get out over my skis here, but I think that's more of a sign of unstable angina versus like an MI because it'll alleviate
with rest.
Yeah.
And then burning chest pain, which is reflux.
Well, that could be
reflux.
Could be a sign of reflux. But the question that we go back to, which of the following chest pain descriptions most consistent with acute myocardial infarction?
And acute is the one that I think.
Well, most consistent.
Yeah.
What is the most consistent type of pain?
Yeah. Crushing chest pain.
Crushing chest pain, right?
Shortness of breath.
And with shortness of breath.
Yes.
That's what I would go with.
Yeah.
All right. You are correct.
Yeah, okay, thank God. Because after that whole long explanation, it would be really disappointing if we were wrong.
All right,
Jonathan, was I correct on? Because you're the paramedic. I'm putting you on the spot. and you're obviously the more cardiac expert. Is alleviated with rest more of a sign of angina than it is?
When I read the question, it can be that, but I also took it as, more of a musculoskeletal issue.
Okay.
In general with cardiac chest pain, movement of any kind or a lack of movement is not going to alleviate it.
Yep.
Right. So I took rest as I'm sitting still. I'm laying still.
Okay.
And it's alleviating it.
Okay.
That's how I interpreted the question. So to me, the big thing was the crushing chest pain and the shortness of breath. Those are both signs, very standard signs of an MI.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. From an assessment standpoint, if anybody has chest pain of any kind, I'm going to evaluate that very, very similarly. I'm going to ask them some questions. And ultimately, I'm going to do a 12 lead for them. And if it's determined that I really strongly believe that it's cardiac related chest pain, I'm going to go down that cardiac chest pain algorithm and treat them that way. So,
and I just looked it up, by the way. I'm wrong. So it is unstable angina is chest pain at rest. So I'm just calling myself out because I had to know, and that's not a sign of unstable angina.
Here's the thing, in the field, angina, it's like somebody's going to tell me that they've been diagnosed with that and that they've got nitro for that, and I'm going to advise them to go to the hospital.
Every time.
And I'm going to assess them the same either way.
But I just wanted to make sure that I'm checking because I'm trying to remember back to some of those things that are less talked about. Like angina is not. We don't talk about that one in school as much as like the MI, right?
I mean, it's almost mentioned in kind of like an offhand way. Oh, there's this thing.
And there's also angina.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So next question.
All right. During the secondary assessment of an adult trauma patient, you note swelling, deformity, and diminished distal pulses in the left thigh. The patient has pale, cool skin and a heart rate of 128 beats per minute with no visible external bleeding. What is the most likely cause of the patient's developing signs of shock? Answer 1, tension pneumothorax resulting from blunt chest trauma. Answer 2, hypovolemia caused by dehydration from prolonged extrication. Answer 3, internal hemorrhage associated with a closed femur fracture. And answer 4, unrecognized external bleeding from a small soft tissue laceration.
What do you think, Max?
I'm locked in.
What do you think?
So I would go with answer 3, internal hemorrhage associated with a closed femur fracture.
Why is that?
Because the closed femur fracture it could potentially cut off pulse going to the distal pulses in the ankle and the feet. The deformity would also key in on a femur fracture. And the swelling as well. So like everything there is screaming they've got something going on with their femur. Specifically the distal pulse being diminished.
Well, yeah, I mean that could be anything with the leg, or it could be a dislocation of something. You know, like that is a sign. But for me, seeing swelling, a deformity, and diminished distal pulse in the left, distal pulses in the left thigh. You got a distal pulse in the thigh? That question is worded oddly.
It is.
And the patient is pale, cool, and skin and has a heart rate of 128. So obviously they're compensating.
Yep.
So they got hypovolemia going on. We know that a closed femur fracture can be a significant loss of blood. There can be a lot of blood that builds up in that space. So the bruising can be that. All the other ones are not wrong answers. So like tension pneumothorax resulting from blunt chest. Well, that may not be compensation. They'd probably be showing other forms of or other symptoms. Hypovolemia caused by dehydration from prolonged extrication, maybe, but it's not the most likely because it's already it's giving you the answer. It's saying, hey, there's a problem with their thigh. Which one of these things could it be? Well, it's probably the thing that we're going to tell you that they have a broken femur. So I think that's the pretty apparent answer on this one.
Yeah. Do you guys locked in?
Oh, we're locked.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Answer 3 is correct. Internal hemorrhage associated with a closed femur fracture. And the big key here is patients developing signs of shock, right? And so, of course, you have all the things going on with the left thigh, like Max was talking about. But then you have the pale, cool skin and the heart rate of 128 beats. And then you don't have any external signs. And so you're having to pick apart aspects of each answer to get to that third answer as being correct. So, but yeah, signs of shock. That's the biggest thing. All right. Are you guys ready for the final question for this evening?
Let's do it.
Sir.
All right. A 68-year-old patient reports generalized weakness and dizziness. The patient states they have had dark, tarry stools for the past 2 days and denies abdominal pain. Vital signs are currently stable. During the secondary assessment, which finding would most strongly suggest a source of bleeding outside the gastrointestinal tract? Answer 1, dark, tarry stools, melena. Answer 2, bloody urine. Answer 3, bright red blood and vomit. And answer 4, coffee ground emesis.
I am 98% sure we've done this question already.
Have we?
I'm pretty sure because I remember having the conversation about it revolved around there's only one of these answers that is outside of the gastrointestinal tract.
Yeah, he's right.
Well, do you remember the answer you picked?
Yeah, the answer is bloody urine because urine is not within the digestional tract. It's in the renal system.
That is the correct answer.
Yeah.
But what's important about these kind of questions and reading through them is there are people that are going to read through and say, oh, they're going to go directly to one of the other answers because they're describing this thing because they didn't go to the end where it says bleeding outside of the
it's you got to really hone in on the questions.
Yeah.
So bonus points for us.
3 for 3.
I
think we're 4 for 4 because not only did we get all of them right, but we recognize the fact that it was a question we've had before.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like we caught Jonathan in a
which means that counteracts the question that we got wrong last time. So I say that makes us 3 for 3 for last week.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
that's where I'm going with.
I don't think getting a question right on the NREMT exam gets your replaces a wrong answer earlier.
I'm going with that being the case.
Well,
those
you can go with whatever you want.
Those are the questions I have for you guys this week.
Very good, sir.
Thank you guys for participating and thank you guys for listening to us.
Yes.
It
is always a pleasure, and we know that some of these topics go a little long, and man, I would have never thought we'd be able to do the second half of an episode, and it would still take like a couple of hours to talk about the whole thing. But there's a lot of things to MCIs and ICS.
Sure.
Stay tuned. We've still got more. There's a few more chapters, topics left in the EMT curriculum, but then it's test prep, which I'm sure many of you have gone through by now. So this may be a refresher, especially if you've been following along since the start of this podcast. And maybe you've gone through school, you deferred your testing. Maybe you needed a refresher. Maybe it's your second time. Maybe you did it years ago.
Yeah.
There is still benefit to preparing yourself and your mind for the scenarios and the exam and the knowledge that you need for doing the job.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that brings us to the end of tonight's episode. Thank you all. Thank you for doing this with us. We like the support and the messages that you guys send us really helps.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. For all of those that have reached out to let us know, like, hey, we made it through school. We got our first job. We're like that makes our day, honestly. Yep. And just people sharing crazy stories in EMS that started happening too. People are like, hey, check this thing out or check out this meme or whatever. Yeah. We love that too. So please keep sending it and, keep interacting with us. Let us know how you're doing. But most importantly, we want to say thank you for taking the journey with us. And we'll see you next time on the Ride Along. This podcast is for educational and storytelling purposes only. It is not medical advice or official EMT training. Always follow your accredited instructors and local protocols.
Heartbeats racing.